What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show, man. Recap with Mo, where we're getting ready to get into another episode breakdown of Tyler Perry's Sistas. But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down, alright? So the episode we're getting ready to get into is for season 9, episode number 2, titled Do No Harm. Now the synopsis states, with Karen's suffering being ignored by a dismissive doctor, desperation sets in as the sisters search for a doctor who cares. When Karen receives the needed attention, a shocking discovery is made. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing. Alright y'all, so we kicked this episode off with Andy and Zach, who's been stuck in traffic for a few hours now. They're trying to figure out how to get to the hospital. Both Andy and Zach are, extremely concerned due to Fatima's message or whatnot. Andy is attempting to be positive, about the situation, but Zach is not aiding her in this situation at all with trying to stay positive. He believes that something could seriously be going on with the health of the twins as well as Karen, because as he says, it takes a lot to shake Fatima. And honestly, I was feeling the same way, but Andy feels like they shouldn't jump to conclusions, right? So meanwhile, on the other side of town, we see Sabrina sitting in traffic talking on the phone with Maurice, explaining to him what went down over at the juice bar with Rich and Penelope. Now, as she's talking to Maurice, we hear someone behind her blowing up the horn, right? Yelling for her to drive, which is crazy because they're sitting in deadlock traffic right now. And so Maurice can hear what's going on, and it's like, dang, like who's blowing and yelling like a crazy person in the background, right? And guess who it is? Daggone Danny. I thought that sounded like Danny, but that's who it was, right? So she's also trying to get to the hospital as well to check in on her homegirl Karen and the twins, of course. So as she's sitting there, obviously she gets so fed up that she decides to get out of her car to give the person in front of her, aka Sabrina, a piece of her mind, right? So as she's cussing and fussing, walking towards the vehicle or whatnot, Sabrina is getting ready to throw down as well, with somebody coming up to a ride or whatnot. So when Danny finally gets to the front, realizes who it is, seeing that it's Sabrina, they both have a good laugh. Danny's like, girl, I should have known it was you because your tail can't drive. So look, I'll see you at the hospital or whatnot. And so she goes back to her vehicle and patiently waits like everyone else, right? So anyhow, from there, we now head over to the hospital where we see Aaron and Miss Lisa, tending to Karen as she's waiting for the doctor. So as they're sitting there, Karen is still saying that something doesn't feel right and that she hasn't received anything for the nausea. Now, it's clear to see that she hasn't been tended to. And the only emotions that you can have in this situation as a mother or as an individual that loves the individual that's going through this is anger, because you're upset that no one is doing their daggone job. And we'll talk about that momentarily, right? So anyhow, so when Karen tells them that she feels wet, Miss Lisa goes to check to see what's going on down there and notices that Karen is still losing blood. So Fatima walks in and sees the blood as well, goes out immediately and says she's going to get help. Now, at this point in time, I got a little angry, right? Because I'm sitting here like, this makes no daggone sense. This woman has been stressing since the time she got there that she's in extreme pain. Yes, there are some complications, definitely when you're having twins, but you have to listen to the individual. They know their bodies better than the doctor knows their body. You have to just listen to them. So let me go ahead and get off that rant, right? So let's go ahead and get back to the story. So back out on the other side of town in the streets, we see Sabrina still talking to Maurice, saying that she needed to see Rich and Penelope to put everything into perspective. She tells him that she believed that he was honestly messing around with her long before she caught them in the act at the juice bar. And I'm like, dang, were they or were they not? Now, I honestly don't feel like they were, but obviously there was some built up whatever it was, because it didn't take long for them to get it on. I'm just saying, maybe that's what he just, I don't know. I ain't gonna make no excuses for my man. I'm just telling you what it is, right? So anyhow, she goes on to tell Maurice that she feels like a fool and that she's talking to him. We hear the telephone ringing, right? And guess who it is? It just so happens to be Brother Rich. Now, of course, Maurice is like, go ahead and pick up the phone, go ahead and answer, put me in on conference so I can hear what's going on with the conversation. She tells Maurice that it's over and that she's, tired of getting, in bed with the wrong man with the wrong energy or giving her energy, something like that, right? I think it was the latter. But, I hear you, Sabrina, but at the same time, you were so eager to give yourself to this man without really knowing this man for real. Let's be honest. And I've said this numerous times before for a lot of these people, a lot of these women rather on this show and the brothers as well. Like, let's slow it down. Take our time a little bit. I think Janet Jackson said, let's wait a while before it's too late. Like, you got to take your time a little bit. You got to take your time and get to know the people. Then, move to the next stages, but I digress, man. Anyhow, I'm sorry she's feeling this way, giving all of her energy away to Brother Rich, but, I don't know what she's going to do. She's saying that it's over, but I honestly don't feel like it's over. Maybe it is, right? So anyhow, we'll see. So from there, we head back over to the hospital where we see Fatima walking through, the hallway or whatnot, where she's trying to go get assistance for Karen, and she runs into both Andy and Zach. Now, they're standing in the waiting room, trying to figure out where to go, how to locate, Karen or whatnot. Now, both Andy and Zach are asking Fatima about Karen's condition, and Fatima goes on to tell them that she's not doing too well and that she's losing a lot of blood, and the doctor that's been assigned to her is a jerk and hasn't listened to Karen as she's been complaining about something not feeling right since the moment she got there, right? Now, of course, both Andy and Zach are livid to hear this information coming from Fatima's mouth. So, of course, Andy's like, look, this is unacceptable. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Now, Fatima leaves them there, instructs them on how to get to Karen's room or whatnot, as she leaves them to go get assistance for Karen. So from there, we head over to see Danny, who's arrived at the hospital. She goes over to the nurse's station to ask old girl for directions on how to get to the maternity ward. Now, of course, receiving information from old girl wasn't going to be easy. So Danny is getting ready to head down the hallway, and as she's getting ready to head down the hallway, we see Fatima coming up to request assistance for Karen as well. Old girl is like, may I help you? She was like, yeah, I need assistance for my friend Karen. She was like, is she in the maternity ward? Now Fatima's like, chick, you already know daggone well that she's down in the maternity ward. Old girl is like, sorry, that's not my that's not my area, shawty. So of course that sends both Fatima and Danny over the top, right? Which old girl finally states that she'll call someone over to assist Karen in Fort, what's the room number 114 or something like that, right? So Fatima tells Danny that she's not pleased at all with the care that the hospital has given Karen. Danny is like, okay, so what's going on? Fatima tells her that Karen is experiencing a lot of pain and losing a lot of blood, and she's concerned about Karen, which they walk towards Karen's room. Now, as they're walking, Fatima finds Nurse Rhonda and tells her about Karen's situation. Now, Rhonda seems sad to hear that no one has checked in on her. Fatima's like, do you know who her nurse is? Now, Nurse Rhonda looks at the chart and states that her nurse's name is Janet, but the way that she said it said like she was trying to say something without saying something, right? And I was like, hold on, wait a minute, what's going on? Give me the 411 on Nurse Janet, like what's going on? But of course, instead of doing that, she did it politely and said, look, I ain't got that much going on. Look, I'll go ahead and put this to the side and I'll go down there and help you with your friend or whatnot. So as they head back to Karen's room, we see Aaron and Miss Lisa, Zach and Andy standing at the bedside. Andy is in complete disbelief that no one had come to check in on Karen at all and suggests that they take her to another hospital. But Miss Lisa's like, she doesn't think that Karen is strong enough for, that move at that moment in time. So as they're standing there discussing this matter, in walks Fatima and Nurse Rhonda. Now, immediately, Nurse Rhonda apologizes to Karen and Andy and everyone in the room or whatnot. And, they're coming, well, not they, but Andy is coming down on her or whatnot. But I'm like, no, Andy, she's not the one. She's the good one, right? Don't worry about her. And even, Karen says, no, I remember you. You've helped me before. So, Andy, you need to calm down. I know your emotions are high. I get it. But this one of the good ones. Just calm down, right? Calm down. So anyways, Nurse Rhonda goes on to tell them that she's noticed quite a bit that concerns her at this specific hospital. And, specifically when it comes to, a certain demographic where, they're not receiving, adequate care. Now, we already know what that is without getting into the details. You already know what it is. Certain groups of people receive the services and the care that they need that's provided for them, and certain groups of people do not receive that. That's been going on for quite a while, for decades, for years. We know what it is. And when I made that video the other day that I dropped, it was a big concern for me, my mother, my mother-in-law, for our family. Like, they wanted me to stay on top of everything, be there with her when she went to checkups. My wife, I'm talking about my wife, be there for everything so we can have, a witness on what's going on, how the process is going, all of that stuff. So when the twins came, I was excited, but I had been there from, since day one. I think I missed one appointment, one of her checkups, but outside of that, I was there for everyone, and I was devastated that I wasn't able to be there for that one, right? But I wanted to be there for my kids, man, and my wife, just be supportive. But getting back to the story, y'all didn't come here for this. I'm just sad to hear that this is still going on today, and people don't want to realize what it is, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's devastating, and for Nurse Rhonda to stand there and have to admit that in a room full of sisters and one brother, that's hard, bro. that's hard. Anyhow, getting back to the story at hand, man. So Nurse Rhonda tells everyone that she needs everyone to leave the room as she takes care of Andy's, not Andy, but Karen's situation. But as they're getting ready, to head out, in walks Danny. Zach tells her that, the nurse just asked for everyone to leave. She's like, nope, no, I ain't going nowhere. Karen looks at Nurse Rhonda and she's like, look, is it all right for my sister to stay? And Nurse Rhonda's like, yeah, it's cool, you good. And tells Danny that she's going to page the doctor and, that she'll get right back to them, right? Now, as she's leaving the room, Nurse Rhonda informs everyone, of the hospital policy or whatnot, and limits, how many people can be in the room, at least 2 guests at a time or whatnot. And she's like, can, you all commit to that or whatnot? Everyone shakes their head like they're in agreement or whatnot. But as soon as Nurse Rhonda leaves, every daggone body, every daggone body runs straight into the room like y'all didn't hear one thing Sister Rhonda just said. Like, what we doing? But I get it, right? So as they're standing there, Miss Lisa tells Andy that the hospital isn't doing her daughter right. And it's like, no worries, Miss Lisa, I'm keeping notes. From there, everyone leaves except for Andy and Zach, who's extremely nervous and doesn't know what to say or to do, right? And all I could say at that moment is that I completely understand. Completely understand, man. So anyhow, meanwhile, out in the waiting area, Fatima states that she doesn't like the way that the, hospital has been treating, Karen and whatnot, and notes that the only ones who have come to assist them in any type of way have been individuals that look like them, that look like us, right? And that's sad, because when you take your oath as a nurse, as a doctor, it is your obligation to treat everyone equally. And unfortunately for Karen and her situation, the people that were around her, that were to attend to her every need, were not willing to do that. And we'll talk about that more as we progress throughout these recaps. We got a long way to go, right? So, of course, Sabrina finally shows up, and let's go ahead and talk about it right now. Danny was absolutely right. How in the world did Danny get to the daggone hospital before you did, and you were in front of her? Like, you couldn't just trail her? Like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, were you that much involved in that conversation with Maurice that you had to drive, 35 miles per hour? What's going on? Right? Anyhow, getting back to the story, I digress, man. So anyhow, when Sabrina walks off into the waiting area, she sees Danny chilling in the waiting room. She's like, thanks a lot, Danny. No, you're the one that can't drive. You talking about thanks a lot, Danny, for leaving me behind. As a matter of fact, what you should have done is just park your car on the side. You could have had a good long conversation with Maurice as you tagged along with Danny and rode with her. Because even Danny is sitting over here like, don't blame me because you can't drive. Don't blame me for that, right? So anyhow, of course, she wants to know what's going on with, the babies or whatnot. So, Aaron is standing there and he tells her that they don't know yet. And Sabrina's like, are you guys kidding me? Are you guys serious? And Fatima says, look, we don't know. It's been hard finding someone to care enough to do their job in this place. So Aaron and Miss Lisa decide to go back to, visit Karen or whatnot as they all, sit in the waiting room or whatnot.
I know my parents love me.
It's a 90s thing. It's a 90s thing. It's a 90s thing. It's a 90s thing. Now, speaking of Karen, we head back to see, Andy and Zach, standing at Karen's bedside or whatnot as she's sleeping. And Zach states that, that he's never seen Karen look so fragile. And of course, Andy agrees and they chuckle a little bit. Now, as they're standing there, talking, Karen actually wakes up and attempts to move around a little bit. But of course, Andy's like, no, you need to chill out, try to conserve your energy or whatnot. Now, of course, as they're standing there, trying to hear her out, Karen is saying that something is not right, something is wrong. Now, as she's saying this to Zach and, Andy or whatnot, here comes Dr. No Good coming into the room to check in on Karen. Now, of course, Andy and Zach are both standing there like, bro, it's about time. And I was like, daggone right. So the doctor tells her to sit back and to brace herself because it's going to be a long ride. And actually, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now, of course, Andy's like, now, why in the world would you say that to her? She's already not feeling well and all of this stuff. Whoa. Now, the doctor is like, okay, so do you want me to lie to her? I mean, it's called labor for I was like, man, this dude is a jerk, but that was comical. But he's a jerk at the same daggone time. Now, Andy's like, okay, cool. Fool, we know that. We know that it's called labor, but why are you being so dismissive of what's going on with her? That's the point. Why are you being so dismissive, my brother? Well, not brother, but y'all get it. Anyhow, moving on from there. So he goes on to tell them that he doesn't see anything, to be concerned about or whatnot. And Andy is like, look, bro, everything right now is a concern. Like at this point, everything. Take your pick. High blood pressure, pain, the bleeding, all of that stuff. So of course he wants Andy and Zach to leave so he can examine, almost said Pam, Karen. And I'm sitting over here like, no, somebody need to stay in the room. Y'all need to call Nurse Rhonda back over here to do her job to make sure that everything goes well like it needs to. Cause I don't know what he doing. He putting on gloves, I don't know. But not only that, he said something to Zach in the room that got me hot, right? Now, we all make mistakes, you know what I'm saying? But you don't have to call me out for my situation. And he was like, oh, so you must be one of the baby daddies. I said, this dude a fool. For real, bro? You gonna call me out like this and say I'm one of the father's daddies? One of them? Like, that's messy, bro. Tyler, you messy, man. So, of course, Zach is sitting over here mad, talking about what is that supposed to mean, bro? You know what that meant. You knew what that meant, man. So, of course, he doesn't want to respond. But instead, he continues to ask them to go ahead and leave the room or whatnot. Karen tells them that she's going to be all right and that she'll be fine. And of course, neither one of us wants to be the first to say goodbye. How she said, now you don't have to go home, but you got to get the heck up out of here. Karen says she's going to be fine. But I tell y'all, well, I highly suggest that y'all go ahead and tell Miss Rhonda to come off into the room. Bring her on in the room if y'all don't trust them. But of course, they obey the commands of the doctor or whatnot, and of course they're supportive of Karen, so they go ahead and exit the room. So of course, as they leave the room, he begins to examine Karen, who's obviously in a lot of pain. He's telling her to remain still as she's telling him that it hurts, and he's looking, as he's enjoying every bit of this situation. And I'm sitting here getting angrier by the second. I mean, the way that he's looking at her as she's, squirming, and all of this stuff, and her facial expressions, like he can obviously tell that she's in pain, and it looks like he's just enjoying every bit of it, right? So anyhow, meanwhile outside, right, let me get off of that. So back outside, we see Andy and Zach, headed out, and they run into, Aaron and Miss Lisa, who are coming from the waiting room to check in on Karen to see how everything is going. Andy tells, Miss Lisa that the doctor is currently examining Karen or whatnot, so he sent them away. Now, Miss Lisa is like, cool, well, I'm going to make sure that he's listening to what Karen has to say, so I'm getting ready to head back in there. Now, if you've heard any of my recaps, you already know I don't care too much for Miss Lisa. I feel like she oversteps her boundaries a lot when it comes to her daughter or whatnot. Let your daughter live, do what she wants to do until she calls you in for assistance, right? Now, I know some people don't agree with that, but it is what it is. Like, mind your business. Sometimes just a little bit. Right, just a little bit. But on this one, I'm gonna let you ride. I'm gonna let you get all up in that business. Why? Because I don't trust him. You know what I'm saying? So this the one time that I'm gonna allow you to overstep and do what you need to do. Right? We need somebody in there. And since it can't be Miss Rhonda or Nurse Rhonda, then I can accept you. Right? So anyhow, when she heads in, the doctor is informing Karen of what's going on, just lying his tail off, right? So Miss Lisa decides to give old boy a piece of her mind. She's had it, goes on to tell him how she feels, and he turns around and tells her that this is labor. And of course, I'm sitting here like, duh, like we can all see that, right? And then he goes on to mention that, in this current situation, with her body frame and all of this stuff, dealing with, the complications of twins, and then with two different partners or whatnot. Bro, hold on, wait a minute, step back. You said what? Cause she got two baby daddies? That's what you saying, this is complicated? Really? What they got to do with labor, right? And Miss Lisa has to point it up to him like, bro, we know that she's pregnant. We also know that she has, two baby daddies of this set of twins. We know that. That's obvious. What we're dealing with right now is her pain, her labor. What are you going to do about that? Don't sit over here and state the obvious, my boy. So anyhow, she's like, look, so what? Move forward and assist my daughter. Do your freaking job. So as they're standing there, Karen looks over at the twins' heart monitor, right? And notices that she's only able to see one of the twins' heartbeat. So of course, she's like, hey, what's going on? The doctor conveys to her that the machine is malfunctioning and that they're supposed to bring another one into that room or whatnot. So of course, Miss Lisa is like, okay, make it happen. So as he's leaving the room, in walks Aaron trying to figure out what's going on. Miss Lisa walks out to head out to tell the girls what's going on. So when she gets out and heads over to, the waiting room to inform them of this information, there's a black doctor that walks by, and of course Fatima has her black radar on, right? So when she sees him passing through, she went over to see him to see, if he would assist Karen, in her time of need or whatnot. Now, of course, my brother, he sees what's in front of him, and he wants to make sure that he does his due diligence and do his job. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he looked down at the rain, but he definitely saw what was in front of him, right? So he was like, yeah, I can help. I got somebody over here, but yeah, I can go with you. Yeah, I can go with you. So he heads out, right? So from there, we see Dr. Vaughn and Fatima returning back to Karen's room. Now, of course, Dr. Vaughn, when he comes in, he introduces himself, and, of course, he has to look at Karen's file because he's not familiar with what she's dealing with or whatnot. Now, as he's standing there, Nurse Rhonda, is surprised to see him at work, that night or whatnot. And he goes on to tell her that he was actually called in, to assist with the shortages or whatnot. So he instructs her while he's standing there, to perform an ultrasound on Karen to see what's going on. So as he's looking over Karen's file, he's asking her when was her last appointment with her OB or whatnot. And she goes on to tell him that it was about 2 weeks ago. Everything was fine. So when Rhonda actually shows up with the machine and begins the ultrasound, we can tell off the rip that something isn't right with the babies, as Nurse Rhonda is oddly looking at him and he's looking back at her. And then he has to run over and get a closer look, and then tells Karen that he's going to consult with Dr. Cruz about the situation. Heck to the no. What in the heck is going on? Karen wants to know. The whole daggone world wants to know. Brother, we've been waiting 9 freaking years for these babies. 9 freaking years, my boy. So, yeah, it's been a long time. We want to know what's going on. We all want to know. So as Dr. Vaughn is leaving the room, in walks Miss Lisa, asking what's going on as well, in which nobody says a word. Absolutely nobody. Which leads us to Dr. Vaughn heading over to have a conversation with Dr. Cruz. Dr. Vaughn informs him that he performed an ultrasound on Karen, and Dr. Cruz is livid, talking about what? She's my patient, and plus you're only a 4th-year resident. Dr. Vaughn is like, okay, what does that mean? So listen, as they're having this conversation smack dab in the middle of the hallway, we see Sabrina coming from the bathroom and hears them having this conversation, where she hears Dr. Vaughn conveying to him that he was only able to detect one baby's heartbeat. So obviously the other baby is stillborn. Now, of course, after hearing that information, she's gasping over here like, oh my goodness, what's going on? She can't believe it. Now, of course, I can't believe that they're holding this conversation out in the hallway, but it is what it is, right? I guess it adds to the drama. So, of course, as Dr. Vaughn is telling him all of this, Dr. Cruz is sitting over here not worried about his patient at all. He's telling him to butt out of his business. He says, tend to your own patients. Don't waste any more resources. My patient is actually going through normal labor. Really? How did he say it? I mean, she's going through natural labor pains, bro. Leave my patient alone. Really? That's what we doing now? No, tend to your freaking patient. You sitting over here talking about don't waste resources. She's going through natural labor. Yes, we all know that labor can be painful, is painful. Women experience it differently from other women. Like, who are we to tell them how they should feel, man? Like, do your freaking job. Anyhow, moving on from there because I'm getting pissed off again. So anyhow, back over in the waiting room, right? We see the ladies plus Zach. Now, as Sabrina is headed back to the waiting room, we see Zach getting up to head over to the bathroom. And I'm like, thank you, Tyler. Perfect timing. Let that brother go. I don't need him to be here. Not right now for this. I don't need too much, right? I'm trying to hold this tear up. You know what I'm saying? Trying to hold this tear in my right eye. So, yeah. So, when Sabrina comes over, she informs them of what she heard. Now, of course, after hearing news like that, you're going to be feeling some sort of way. So, of course, they sit down, feeling all sorts of ways, right? And now we see Zach returning back. So, of course, when he comes back, he's noticing the body language of the people around him in the waiting room, and he can obviously tell that something isn't right. So, of course, he's like, what's going on? So, Fatima gets up, heads over to inform him of what was just given to her from Sabrina, and Zach immediately breaks down in the middle of the daggone waiting room, and I'm like, too soon, daggone it, Tyler. So from there, we see Sabrina and Andy sitting in the waiting area, and Sabrina sees Dr. Vaughn, and he's walking by and calls him over. Now they go ahead and tell him that Sabrina overheard the conversation in the middle of the hallway, we should add, about Karen's personal business, right? Now Dr. Vaughn tells them that he can't say anything about that due to HIPAA laws, which, bro, all that HIPAA been broke. Bro, you done broke every single law. Bro, you just had a whole daggone conversation in the middle of the daggone hallway. We just conveyed to you what she heard coming out of your lips, with Dr. Cruz on the other side defending what he was doing. What HIPAA laws? What? HIPAA laws? Really? Come on, bro. So anyhow, even though he doesn't say anything, he couldn't assist them directly, he does say enough for Andy and the crew so they can switch doctors, because they wanted to know what they needed to do, and he told them enough that they needed to do legally to switch doctors, because they really wanted to get rid of Dr. No Good, and he did help them out in some sort of way, even though he didn't want to break them daggone HIPAA laws. But we'll leave it at that. So anyhow, from there, we head back over to Karen's room, where we see Dr. Vaughn coming back into her room or whatnot. Now, I don't know if he had a change of heart and decided the heck with it or whatnot. I don't know. But what we do know is that Dr. Vaughn is informing Karen of what he noticed from the ultrasound, and informs her that one of the babies is no longer with us, right? So of course, that's a hard conversation to have with anyone, but definitely in this case for a first-time mother, it's hard. So as he leaves the room, no sooner than, a few ticks, we see Dr. No Good coming into the room, asking, how's everything going? Man, you know how everything is going? Really? Really? What in the world is going on? So everyone in the room lets Dr. Cruz know exactly where he could go. Like, we no longer want your services, my boy. So now after they tell him all of that, now he want to get in his feelings, talking about, I'm this, I'm that. I'm this and that at this hospital. Bro, we don't care. What we know you're not right now is no longer her doctor. Praise the Lord. Move the heck on, bro. So he was like, okay, you want to replace me with a 4th-year resident? Well, good riddance. Like, for real? No. Say that for yourself. You were the one fired on the job. We no longer want your services, right? So anyhow, as he's leaving the room, he heads over to Dr. Vaughn and informs him that, he's been requested to replace him or whatnot, but trust this isn't over. His words, not mine, right? So anyhow, from there, we head back over to Karen's room, where we see Dr. Vaughn coming through to inform Karen of what's going on, or what he believed that should happen at this point in time, which is to perform an emergency C-section. Now Karen is like, cool, and tells her, her mom and Aaron that she wanted to discuss something with her sisters. And they have a little sidebar conversation, and as they're talking, you know what I'm saying? It seemed cool at first, and I knew something wasn't going to be right at the end of this daggone episode, daggone it, Tyler. I knew it, but it is what it is, right? You already knew it had to be dramatic. So as she's talking and she's telling them that, she wants them to, be supportive of her, and, she wants the kids to be in their lives and all of this good stuff. They're telling her that they will, and that everything is going to go fine with the C-section and all of this stuff. Karen passes out. I'm sitting over here like, what in the world? What are we doing? So, that's the end of it, man. Thank y'all for sticking it out. This was a long one, but I felt like I need to give y'all something. It's been a minute. I had to get back in here. 34 minutes or so. Thank y'all. If you made it this far, thank you guys for listening to it. Episode number 3 is out tomorrow, possibly number 4 as well. I got to get caught up. It's like 14 or 15 episodes. Daggone. So yeah, look forward to those. I'll probably drop 2 a day. That's what my goal is until we get caught up, so we can be on point with everything. Also, I'm looking at doing Bel Air season 3. I know season 4 is getting ready to start late November. I think it's like November the 24th. So I got to get caught up on that. We're going to drop that on this platform. Zactima is coming back out as well on this platform. I got those already pre-recorded. So look for those as well in between these. And a couple of more new shows. All right. So be on the lookout for those. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.